More than 5 centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote words that still make people uncomfortable today. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you truly are. For generations, people believed he was teaching little more than political strategy, the pursuit of power, the art of ruling, the manipulation of kingdoms. But they overlooked something far more profound. Real power never begins in the world. It begins within. Because before a man can influence a nation, lead an army, build a company, or guide a family, he must first answer a far more difficult question. Who truly governs his own mind? We live in an age where the word power often carries a negative meaning. People associate it with control, with domination, with manipulation, with ambition without limits. But the most dangerous form of power has never been the one you hold over others. It is the power others quietly gain over you. Pause for a moment. How many decisions did you make today because they reflected your deepest convictions? And how many were shaped by something else? The fear of being judged, the desire to be accepted, the pressure to fit in, the silent need to prove your worth. Perhaps you believe you are living freely. But are you? Or have you simply learned to obey invisible rules you never consciously chose? Look around. One criticism can ruin an entire day. A compliment can suddenly restore someone's confidence. A stranger's opinion online is enough to create self-doubt. One rejection is enough to convince a person to abandon a lifelong dream. Isn't that strange? Never before have so many people spoken about freedom. Yet never before have so many become emotionally dependent on the opinions of others. That is the paradox of our generation. The more desperately we seek acceptance, the more quietly we surrender our power. Machiavelli spent his life observing kings, generals, diplomats, and rulers. But his greatest discoveries were not about governments. They were about human nature. He noticed that very few people are defeated by their enemies alone. Most are defeated by something much closer. Impulsiveness, vanity, the hunger for recognition, the inability to accept criticism, desires they never learned to master. This is where the difference between appearance and authority begins. Many people know how to look powerful. Very few remain powerful when no one is watching. There is a kind of power that comes from wealth, another that comes from status, another that comes from physical strength. Every one of them can disappear overnight. A financial crisis, a political change, an illness, a single mistake. Everything can vanish. But there is one kind of power that no circumstance can take away. The power to remain faithful to your principles. The power to govern your emotions. The power to think clearly while everyone else is consumed by panic. That is the power that creates true leaders. Not leaders who merely command people. Leaders who inspire simply by the way they live. Imagine a commander standing before his army, moments before battle. Thousands of eyes are fixed upon him. If panic reaches his face, fear spreads through every soldier. If calm remains in his posture, confidence becomes contagious. Real leadership never begins with words. It begins with presence, with composure, with the silent confidence that refuses to collapse under pressure. Life works the same way, whether you realize it or not. Someone is always watching. A child learns from a parent. A friend observes another friend. A colleague notices your reactions. People rarely follow speeches. They follow examples. Perhaps that is why so many attempts to influence others ultimately fail. We try to change people before changing ourselves. We demand respect before building character. We seek authority before developing discipline. We chase influence before earning integrity. But reality never reverses that order. Transformation comes first. Influence follows. Self-mastery comes first. Everything else grows from it. There is a reason for that. A man who cannot govern himself will always be governed by something else. Fear, anxiety, approval, impulse, circumstance. And no one living under those masters can ever become truly powerful. Perhaps the most important question is not how much power you hope to gain. Perhaps the real question is far more uncomfortable. How much of your power have you already given away without ever noticing? Because there is an invisible force quietly stealing freedom from millions of people every single day. It doesn't threaten, it doesn't shout, it doesn't use violence, yet it has the power to shape an entire life. And before you can master the world around you, you must first learn how to recognize that invisible enemy within. There is an invisible force that governs the lives of countless people. And most never realize it exists. It cannot be seen. It leaves no scars. It makes no sound. Yet it quietly shapes decisions every single day. Its name is approval. From the very beginning of life, we are taught to seek it. First from our parents, then from our teachers, later from friends, from co-workers, from society itself. Without realizing it, we slowly begin measuring our worth through someone else's eyes. And that is the moment our power begins to slip away. Machiavelli spent years studying rulers who commanded armies and governed entire nations. One discovery appeared again and again. Many kings lost their kingdoms long before they lost their crowns, because they first lost control over themselves. The fear of disappointing others became stronger than the courage to act. The desire to appear righteous became more important than doing what was necessary. Perhaps the same thing happens today. How many times have you remained silent? Not because silence was wise, but because you feared rejection. How many opportunities have you abandoned because you imagined what others might think? How many dreams have died before they ever began, simply because criticism felt too heavy to bear? Now ask yourself one uncomfortable question. Were those decisions truly yours? Or were they made by your need to be accepted? There is a profound difference between wisdom and dependence. Wisdom protects. Approval imprisons. Today, the wine prison has become more sophisticated than ever. All it takes is opening an app. Within seconds, thousands of lives appear before your eyes. Perfect careers, perfect relationships, perfect vacations, perfect bodies, perfect success. Or so it seems. Without noticing, people stop building their own lives. Instead, they begin chasing someone else's illusion. The more they compare, the farther they drift from themselves. The more they seek validation, the weaker their identity becomes. Machiavelli never witnessed social media, yet he would recognize this behavior instantly. Because technology changes, human nature rarely does. Imagine a young artist. For years, he paints from the deepest part of his soul. Every canvas reflects his vision, his truth, his identity. Then someone tells him, that style doesn't sell. Another says, you need to follow trends. Someone else insists, you'll never succeed unless you become someone different. Little by little, he stops creating what he believes in. He begins producing only what earns applause. Perhaps he becomes more popular. Perhaps he earns more money. But something priceless quietly disappears. Himself. The same pattern repeats everywhere. People choose careers to impress others, remain in relationships out of fear of loneliness, stay in jobs that destroy them because change might disappoint someone else. The price seems small at first, but over time, it becomes enormous. Because every decision made to satisfy someone else's expectations weakens trust in your own judgment. And a mind that no longer trusts itself becomes addicted to external validation. That addiction never satisfies. The more approval you receive, the more approval you need. The less you receive, the more you question your own worth. That is how one of the most invisible forms of slavery is created. Machiavelli understood that every leader needed to recognize human weakness, but perhaps our greatest weakness has never been ambition. It has been our inability to remain faithful to our principles when pressure begins to rise. It is easy to defend your values when everyone agrees with you. The real test begins when staying true means standing alone. Have you ever noticed how some people become completely different depending on who they are with? One personality among friends, another at work, another with family, another online. As if they wear a different mask for every room they enter. At first, it looks like adaptation. Eventually, it becomes confusion. They no longer remember which version is real. Perhaps that is the greatest cost of living for approval. You slowly lose sight of your own identity. Picture a magnificent castle built upon sand. From a distance, it looks magnificent, unshakable, almost eternal. But when the first storm arrives, its foundation reveals the truth. The problem was never the storm. It was what the castle had been built upon. Life works exactly the same way. If your identity depends on praise, criticism will destroy you. If your confidence depends on applause, silence will feel unbearable. But there is another kind of person, one who builds on solid ground. He listens to criticism without becoming its prisoner. He accepts praise without becoming addicted to it. His direction does not change with every passing opinion. It remains anchored to something far deeper. His principles. That is the difference between those who merely hold power and those who truly become powerful. Yet even after a person escapes the need for approval, one final enemy still remains. An enemy far more dangerous than public opinion. It cannot be found in the world. It cannot be blamed on other people. It lives much closer than that. It waits quietly, inside the human mind. And very few recognize it before it begins making their decisions for them. There is one question that very few people are willing to answer with complete honesty. Who is truly in control of your life? At first, the answer seems obvious. You might say it is your choices, your experience, your personality. But if you look closely, you will discover a profound difference between making conscious decisions and simply reacting to whatever life places in front of you. That difference is where real power is born. Throughout this journey, we have walked beside kings, generals, and thinkers who shaped history. Men who ruled nations, influenced generations, and left behind wisdom that continues to echo across the centuries. Yet perhaps Machiavelli's greatest lesson was never about conquering kingdoms. Perhaps it was about never surrendering the government of your own soul. Because there is no victory more dangerous than the one that convinces a man he no longer needs to watch over himself. Pride never announces its arrival, neither does vanity. The hunger for recognition enters quietly, one small decision at a time, until one day, your entire life revolves around protecting an image instead of living the truth. That is the moment many people stop living and begin performing. Perhaps that is why so many appear confident on the outside, yet feel exhausted within. They protect a character, hide their insecurities, fear showing weakness, spend their lives trying to meet everyone's expectations, while drifting farther and farther away from who they truly are. But there is good news. You do not need to conquer the world to reclaim your power. You simply need to stop giving it away. Every time you allow criticism to determine your worth, you surrender power. Every time you abandon your principles to gain approval, you surrender power. Every time fear makes your decisions, you surrender power. Every time you remain silent simply because you fear judgment, you surrender power. Now imagine living differently. Imagine waking up every morning and asking yourself just one question. Am I living according to my principles? Not according to public opinion, not according to social expectations, not according to comfort, but according to what your conscience knows is true. That single question changes everything. It reorganizes your priorities, strengthens your character, silences comparison, and quietly places responsibility back where it has always belonged, into your own hands. Perhaps this is how true power is born, not through force, not through fear, not through domination, but through the ability to remain whole in a world constantly trying to divide your attention, your values, and your identity. Look at nature. A mountain does not move because the wind grows stronger. The ocean does not cease to exist because storms rise above it. The sun continues to shine, even when clouds temporarily hide its light. Nature never negotiates its essence. Perhaps neither should you. The stronger your foundation becomes, the less influence chaos has over your life. This does not mean becoming cold or indifferent. It does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means learning to walk through life without allowing every opinion, every criticism, or every circumstance to decide who you are. That is a daily practice. Every lasting transformation begins with small decisions. Begin by observing your reactions. Before answering in anger, pause. Before seeking approval, ask whether you are remaining faithful to your values. Before comparing your life to someone else's, remember that you were never meant to live another person's story. Protect your time, protect your attention, protect your conscience, because those three things quietly build or destroy every destiny. You do not need to convince the world that you are strong. You only need to strengthen what the world cannot see: your character, your discipline, your integrity. When those become greater than your desire to be accepted, something extraordinary begins to happen. Fear loses its grip, anxiety grows quieter, confidence no longer depends upon applause, and peace becomes a choice rather than a coincidence. Perhaps this is the greatest form of power any human being can ever possess: the power to remain faithful to yourself, even when the road is lonely, even when no one understands your decisions, even when success takes longer than you hoped. Because every enduring masterpiece is built in silence long before the world ever notices it. Before we leave this chapter, I want to offer you one simple challenge. For the next 7 days, pay attention to every important decision you make. Each time, ask yourself one question. Am I choosing this out of conviction or out of the need for approval? Write down your answers. You may discover something about yourself that changes the direction of your life forever. Perhaps that is the first step toward reclaiming a power that was never meant to belong to anyone else. If this episode challenged the way you think, support the silent order by leaving a like. Share this video with someone who is searching for strength, wisdom, and inner freedom. Tell me in the comments, which lesson stayed with you the most? Or, if you prefer, leave just one word that represents the person you choose to become from this day forward. Subscribe to the Silent Order and continue this journey through philosophy, psychology, and timeless wisdom with us. In the next chapter, we will explore the one resource every human being possesses, yet almost everyone wastes. A philosopher transformed this simple truth into a way of living that has inspired millions across generations. Until then, remember this quiet truth. The man who governs his own conscience never needs to compete with the world for power.